But let's talk James Wiseman. First and foremost, we can't lose sight. He looks healthy. He looks healthy, right? That's when they shut him down a second time, and then I was hearing he went to Europe for, PRP. You're like, oh man, is this going to just be one of those stories? So he looks healthy. That's first and foremost, and he's showing some improvement. As marginal as it may be, it's in the right direction. And that was what was so discouraging to me about the G League appearance. When was that? In March? Because it was, look, we get it. He'd been injured. I'm not saying he was going to come out and be Hakeem Olajuwon, and no one expected that, but everybody was hoping to see like some marginal improvements. Like, all right, maybe his footwork a little more polished, the hands a little stronger, and in those 3 G League games, it was like no improvement. That's what was so discouraging. Now, what I'm seeing is a guy, he's staying more ready. Now, we have to have a much larger sample size of that, because just a five game summer league thing it's not a big enough sample size, right? To simplify it, it can just be a honeymoon. But he's staying more ready. A lot of the time you see with young players, I love to use it. You've seen the Nike basketball shirts. It says basketball never stops. And that's the truth of it is like your attention, not physically, you could just be standing there, but your attention you have to be alert at all times. You can't take mental breaks when you're on the floor, when you're a young player. If you're LeBron, fine, you understand you're not part of this, you know what's going to happen, then you can do it. When you're a vet, Andre, that's the advantage veterans have to preserve their bodies. But as a young player, you have to be alert all the time. And so I'm seeing Wiseman just be more alert. He's staying ready in this small sample size. The timing, I think we all can understand why that's off, whether he has timing or not. He's trying to anticipate, right? And he's actually jumping and contesting shots at the rim. That was like my huge pet peeve his rookie year. And when we saw him, and it's one of those things where as a coach, as a teacher, I was talking to someone about this today in the messages, is young players, young students, they take things too literally sometimes. And I feel like Wiseman initially, they were like, hey, just be tall, stay vertical. And he would take it too literally. You'd see him stand there with 2 hands up and not like change angles or contest shots. It's like, bro, you could easily jump and just bat that shit. And so he's finally jumping and trying to protect the rim, and you're seeing his presence. What's the saying? You can't teach big. There are several times where guys head into the paint and they just, hit a Yui because he's standing at the rim. He ain't even got to do nothing. He's just there. But as far as the pick and roll coverage, he's still too yielding, in my opinion, right? Where he drops down into that crouch stance and he just retreats. And the guards, especially at the NBA level, never mind summer league, you got to make them think about something, right? It's too easy of a read for an advanced ball handler. And really, Draymond being the master of masters at this is that cat and mouse game in the pick and roll coverage and in that coverage. And Wiseman, he's just not yet playing that game. And I'm not expecting that he would, right? But he doesn't make him think about anything. He's just too deliberate right now. It's like a dancer counting his steps. I went into some more detail on that in the breakdowns. You can find that on my Patreon. Support your boy. But I would love to see him show at the top of the screen or even switch at times, right? Because like, what's the point of this crazy athletic 7-footer if all you're doing is having him drop and be super conservative? So maybe that will come in time when maybe he's more confident in his body and they're baby steps or what. But you also heard the athletic boys, Slater and Marcus Thompson, and their takeaways. They were there. They saw him in person. They were talking about a lack of strength. Like, he does look physically stronger, but he was kind of getting bullied and he's kind of not that strong, and brought up the lower body. I'm sure he is a little bit top heavy like most of these young dudes are. I don't think it's as much of a lack of strength as it is a lack of technique. I think he doesn't understand leverage, angles, and using his weight yet. For instance, my daughter and I are working on drawing contact and then finishing. And, she's trying to bump me. She can't move me. I'm about 200 pounds. But I'm like, well, what if you drop low and then bump up towards me, right? And then all of a sudden, you're nudging me off my pivot and you're winning the contact, right? Like, it's technique. It's technique more so than strength. So we'll see. Again, such a small sample size. Offensively, let's just be honest. No one is doing him any favors on that Summer League roster. No one is like, let me get you a bucket, big fella. No one, man. You heard Steve Smith crying about it in, I think it was the second game, right? They're running a lot of pick and rolls with him, right? In the screens, he does that thing where he kind of reaches out with his elbow to try to make sure he gets contact with his arms. And what's happening is he's setting up the screen too early. Like, go find the guy and set up right on his shit. Don't set up 2 feet away from him. Guys you're gonna miss. And especially when you've got ball handlers in McClung and Kuminga who are leaving too early. They're not even letting him set up, so it's kind of compounding the issue. And then when he rolls, the timing is off. I've also heard people talking about how he and Kuminga, they don't really fit on the floor together. It's funny, though, because the solution is simple. It's right in our faces. It's right in front of us. What is Wiseman's strength and instincts as an offensive player? It's shooting the ball, right? Let him pop on the pick and roll. Let him pop to the top of the key and let him play on the perimeter. It's almost as if they're so concerned that he'll fall in love with being a jump shooting big, they're neglecting the fact that that's really his nature as a ball player. And that's his strength and value on that end of the floor right now. So use it. Let him build confidence with that. Let him play outside in. We all can see he's not really refined in the paint and with his back to the basket and all that. He's got touch, but what's his instinct? He'll get the ball 3 feet from the basket. He wants to shoot a jumper. And then in turn, what does that do? That encourages Kuminga to play to his strengths and attack in the paint because Wiseman set up out on the perimeter. I don't know. It seems like a simple solution, but I think they may be overthinking the development process. They're looking too far ahead instead of like what's right in front of them in their strengths right now.